picture a beautifully arranged, like incredibly complex line of falling dominoes.
Oh, that's a great visual.
Right.
Yeah.
And, if you want that final, most important domino to fall perfectly, you don't just walk to the very end of the line and shove it over.
No, of course not. You'd ruin the whole momentum.
Exactly. You tap the very first one, and you let the kinetic sequence do the heavy lifting for you. But in the golf swing, an overwhelming number of players treat the trail shoulder like that final domino.
They absolutely do.
They get to the top of the swing, completely panic about hitting the ball, and just forcefully shove that shoulder downward and forward to start the downswing.
Yeah.
So is that the right way to think about this?
It's a great analogy because if you walk to the end of that line and shove the last domino, you entirely defeat the purpose of the setup. You interrupt the whole chain reaction.
Right, the sequence is broken.
Exactly. And what we are analyzing today in this deep dive is the highly coordinated interaction of the rib cage, the trail scapula, the shoulder blade, the arms, the hands, and the handle of the golf club.
Because it's a masterclass in sports science, really. It changes how you view your own swing.
It really does. The absolute best movements in golf, the ones you see on tour that look completely effortless but produce, massive power and precision, they're entirely a result of sequence, not independent muscular force.
So it's not just hitting the gym and muscling it.
Not at all.
Yeah.
When a golfer tries to force a specific position from the top of the swing, especially by firing that trail shoulder, they immediately destroy the kinetic chain that makes an athletic strike possible.
And that kinetic chain concept is crucial because before we map out the correct biomechanics for you, we have to look at the trap, the transition trap.
The microsecond that ruins the swing.
Yeah. There is a fundamentally flawed instinct kicking in during that critical moment when the backswing ends and the downswing begins. It has to do with the physical path the shoulder takes, doesn't it?
It does. To understand the trap, you really have to look closely at the three-dimensional geometry of the backswing path versus the downswing path.
Okay, let's break that down.
So during your backswing, your trail shoulder moves upward, backward, and, around your torso. The rib cage is rotating away from the target, and your trail scapula is retracting.
Retracting meaning it's like gliding backward.
Right, gliding backward along your rib cage and squeezing slightly toward your spine. This specific movement is what allows your trail arm to fold naturally, giving your hands depth behind your torso.
Got it. But on the way down, things change.
Drastically. In the downswing, the trail shoulder absolutely must take a slightly lower and shallower route. It cannot just reverse course.
But wait, structurally that defies logic for a lot of players.
Yeah.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
If I go out the front door, I should come back in the front door, right? If my backswing path goes up, back, and around, the most logical instinct in the world is to retrace that exact same path in reverse to get the club head back to the golf ball.
I get why people think that, but a simple reversal completely ignores the physics of what you are actually swinging.
Because of the club itself.
Exactly. You are holding a club with the center of mass located out to the side of the shaft, and it's attached to a flexible lever.
Okay, so if I retrace the path...
If you try to retrace that backswing path and fire your shoulders from the top, your torso spins out. And when the upper body spins early, centrifugal force immediately throws the mass of the club and your hands outward away from your body.
Oh, wow. So you lose all your leverage.
You do. The handle of the club needs a much better opportunity to move closer to your center of mass during transition. The trail shoulder isn't an independent actor deciding where to go.
So it's not the boss.
No, its shallower path on the way down is merely a physical reflection of a rapidly changing relationship between your torso, your arms, and the weight of the golf club. You are reorganizing the entire system to deliver the club head rather than just, swinging an axe at a tree.
Okay, so if we aren't pulling that trail shoulder down, if forcing it is the enemy of this whole system, what actually creates that lower, shallower path? Because the sports science points straight to the torso and the kinetic sequence, right? Starting from the ground up.
Yeah, the engine of this entire movement is the rib cage, driven by ground reaction forces. Everything starts with pressure in the feet shifting toward the lead side, which moves the pelvis, which in turn acts on the rib cage.
Okay, so feet, pelvis, rib cage.
Exactly. And as the downswing begins, your rib cage has to start rotating toward the target. But as it changes direction, it actually stretches. It fundamentally changes its position relative to the trail scapula.
Because in the backswing, the scapula was retracted.
Right. And in transition, it has to glide across the rib cage. It cannot stay locked back there in retractions, squeezing against the spine, and it definitely shouldn't be aggressively shoved forward by your anterior shoulder muscles.
I like to think of your rib cage as the central axis of one of those heavy glass revolving doors at a hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and your arms are the heavy glass panels.
That's a brilliant way to picture it.
Yeah, if you grab that center axis and just violently spin it right away while keeping all the hinges and panels completely rigid, those glass doors, or your arms, are going to be thrown outward by centrifugal force.
Right.
That visual perfectly explains the mechanism of an over-the-top swing. When a golfer spins their shoulders aggressively from the top, keeping the upper body rigid, the arms get thrown outward.
The dreaded steep shaft.
Yes. The shaft steepens, the club gets thrown outside the target line, and then you have to rely on frantic hand-eye coordination to even make contact.
So what's the correct sequence with the revolving door?
You have to allow the center axis, the rib cage, to begin opening while the shoulders themselves remain relatively quiet. When the rib cage begins to change direction, driven by the lower body, and the shoulders don't immediately spin with it, you create a massive amount of physical space in front of your body. Space that the arms have to drop into. But, the sources keep mentioning that the arms lower passively due to gravity and muscular recoil. We need to dissect that because muscular recoil sounds like a bit of a buzzword. What's actually firing there?
Well, we are talking about the stretch-shortening cycle of your muscles, specifically in your core, obliques, and lats.
Like a rubber band.
Exactly. Think of the fascial slings in your body like thick rubber bands connecting your lead hip to your trail shoulder. When your lower body and pelvis start moving toward the target to begin the downswing, but your shoulders are still finishing their rotation away from the target, you stretch that rubber band to its absolute maximum tension.
And that tension is the recoil.
Yes. When that stretch reaches its limit, the muscles naturally want to fire back to their resting length. At that exact moment, if you keep your shoulder joints relaxed rather than tensing up, gravity literally pulls the weight of your arms and the club downward.
Oh, because the torso is moving and the shoulders are quiet.
Precisely. This combination of gravity and elastic recoil causes the arms, hands, and handle to move slightly inward and downward toward the center of your body.
Which brings us from the biomechanics lab straight out onto the golf course. Let's look at real-world application, specifically hitting an iron shot. The data clearly shows that the holy grail of iron play is low-point control.
Absolutely. For a premium iron shot, the lowest point of your swing arc cannot be at the golf ball, and it certainly cannot be behind it.
But you chunk it if it's behind.
Exactly. It must occur several inches after the ball. You need to strike the back of the golf ball first, trapping it slightly against the turf, and then the club enters the ground,
Creating that compression.
That is the physics of compression. It gives you dynamic loft control, meaning you aren't scooping the ball to get it airborne, and it creates that distinct, heavy sound of a professional strike.
But wait, if the science says my hands and a handle of the club are moving inward and downward toward my center during transition, how do I actually reach the ball out in front of me? I mean, if I'm pulling my hands inward toward my zipper, doesn't pulling inward make me miss it? That sounds like a guaranteed recipe for hitting it dead off the toe.
And this fear of missing the ball is exactly what triggers the instinct to throw the hands outward and abandon the sequence.
It's just human nature to reach for it.
It is, but you have to trust the three-dimensional geometry of a rotating body. That inward and downward movement of the handle does not mean you are pulling your arms tight into your stomach at impact.
Right, because that's just the transition.
Yes, the inward movement happens early, in transition, specifically to preserve space for your arms and prevent the shaft of the club from getting excessively steep.
So you are setting up the delivery parameters. You aren't actually delivering the club head yet.
Precisely, because your body does not stay facing the golf ball. By coordinating the sternum, the pelvis, and the rotation of the rib cage, this early inward delivery pattern naturally moves the low point of the swing forward later in the sequence.
As you rotate through.
As your entire body rotates vigorously toward the target, it carries those centered, organized hands forward and out into the impact zone.
And the centrifugal force pulls them straight.
Yes, eventually. But because they started from an organized inward position, the club head travels on a stable, shallow path. You compress the ball with the massive rotational force of your core and lower body, rather than a frantic slap of the hands trying to save a steep shaft.
Knowing that this sequence creates that beautiful, shallow path is one thing. But, as coaches know, players are incredibly observant. They watch slow-motion videos of tour pros at impact. They see that trail shoulder looking significantly lower and shallower with this massive side crunch, and they try to fake it.
And faking it leads to a biomechanical disaster.
Why is that? What are they actually seeing?
What players are observing on video is functional side bend. You see a still photo of a great player at impact, and their trail side is deeply crunched, their trail shoulder's incredibly low, and their hips are open.
It looks so athletic.
It does. And a shallower trail shoulder absolutely contributes to that visual of side bend. But side bend is a result, not an active, independent action.
So you can't just force it.
No, it is the geometric result of pelvic rotation, ribcage rotation, pressure movement in the feet, and the passive lowering of the arms we just discussed.
So what happens when a golfer hears they need a lower trail shoulder, so they just independently drop or collapse that side to fake the look?
When you artificially collapse that trail side, you immediately narrow the physical space between your trail elbow and your trail hip. The elbow gets pinned behind the hip.
Oh, you get completely stuck.
Biomechanically, your sternum gets stuck way too far behind your pelvis. Because your upper body tilted away from the target far too early, your arms are now tracked behind your torso. You have eliminated all that space in front of your body that you need for the arms to swing through.
And when the arms are trapped behind the body, the club has nowhere to go but excessively outward.
Right, the club path shifts dramatically into out. You will either hit a massive block to the right because the club face is stuck open, or your brain will panic, your hands will aggressively flip the club face closed to save the shot, and you will hit a snap hook.
And what about the physical toll on the body?
The consequences are severe. When you collapse the side while rotating at high speeds, you introduce massive shearing forces to the lumbar spine.
Ouch. Yeah, that lower back pain.
The goal is never to independently collapse the spine to fake a position. The goal is to create side bend organically through rotation and coordinated movement.
So, moving from diagnosis to prescription. If the fake side bend ruins the swing and stresses the lower back, how does a player actually train their neuromuscular system to trust this passive arm movement?
Well, the research details the specific protocol called the quiet shoulders opening ribcage drill.
Okay, walk us through it, step by step.
This drill is entirely about reprogramming your neuromuscular system and building new myelinated pathways in the brain so that the sequence becomes automatic. You want to start in your normal golf posture.
Through the club?
You can use a club, but it is often better to do this empty-handed first to heighten your physical awareness.
Okay, good tip.
Move very slowly to the top of your backswing. Check in with your body, ensure you have balanced pressure in your feet, and firmly verify there is no unnecessary tension in your hands, arms, shoulders, or neck.
Because tension ruins the recoil.
Tension is the absolute enemy of a passive drop. If your muscles are tight, they cannot stretch and recoil.
So I'm at the top, I have my depth, and I am totally relaxed. What is the precise trigger for the transition?
Begin the transition by allowing just your rib cage to rotate gently toward the target, sensing the pressure shift in your lead foot.
Just the rib cage?
Yes. Your primary focus here is keeping the shoulders relatively quiet during this initial fraction of a second. Do not pull your lid shoulder aggressively around to the target, and absolutely do not fire your trail shoulder downward.
So resist that urge.
Exactly. As that rib cage begins to open, you simply allow your arms and hands to glide passively closer to the center of your body, riding that wave of gravity.
So the physical sensation here is almost like you are leaving your shoulders behind for a split second while the engine of your torso starts the transition.
Leaving them behind captures the sensory experience perfectly. The rib cage begins the transition while the shoulders remain responsive rather than dominant.
And that creates the glide we talked about earlier.
Right. If you execute this correctly, you will actually feel the trail scapula gliding across the ribs. You will notice that your trail shoulder naturally begins to travel on that shallower path we've been chasing all along. It just happens as a byproduct of the sequence.
Wow. And how do we build reps with this feeling? Because it's going to feel weird at first.
Pause the movement when your lead arm is approximately parallel to the ground in the downswing. Feel the geometry of that position. Your hands should feel much more centered in front of your chest, not thrown out away from you.
And then just reset.
Then return to the top and repeat it. You want to do 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 10 slow repetitions. Moving slowly is imperative for neuromuscular adaptation.
And then introduce the golf ball.
Once you have the feel without a ball, introduce a short iron. Finally, try hitting some controlled shots at 40 to 50% of your normal speed, focusing entirely on maintaining this exact sequence rather than the outcome of the golf ball.
But we should clarify, there's a crucial coaching caution here. Leaving the shoulders behind doesn't mean becoming completely rigid, right?
That is a vital coaching caveat. Quiet shoulders do not mean completely frozen, locked shoulders.
Some passive arms don't mean dead arms.
Exactly. Passive arms do not mean completely inactive, dead arms that just drop limply. And the ribcage opening shouldn't be an aggressive, violent spin. You are blending these movements, not isolating them into robotic chunks.
It's a golf swing, not a robotics demonstration.
Right. The entire sequence must remain fluid, athletic, and three-dimensional. The shoulders are still moving, they're just following the lead of the torso rather than dictating the transition.
Synthesizing this entire deep dive into a clear philosophy, it's really about hierarchy, isn't it? The ground leads the pelvis leads the ribcage pulls the shoulders, and the shoulders deliver the arms. So what is the central thesis you want players to take to the practice tee?
The overriding principle is that the trail shoulder does not need to be forced into a shallower position. The correct professional path of that shoulder is a chain reaction created by the sequence happening beneath it. The sequence is the secret.
The sequence is the secret. I love that.
The ribcage changes direction, driven by ground reaction forces. The trail scapula responds by gliding out of retraction. The elastic recoil and gravity allow the arms to move closer to the center. The handle reorganizes itself into a mechanically advantageous position.
And then the shoulder just follows.
And because all of that happened in the correct order, the trail shoulder naturally follows a shallower route. Functional side bend develops organically as a result of that rotation. And most importantly, your low point moves forward, ahead of the golf ball, allowing for absolute compression.
Sequence the movement. Organize the handle. Move better. Strike better. When you respect the domino effect of the kinetic chain, the aesthetics of a great golf swing simply happen on their own.
You know, it leaves you with an interesting thought to explore on your own. If gravity and natural muscular recoil are doing so much of the actual work to lower your arms and shallow the club in a proper sequence, perhaps the biggest obstacle to a perfect golf swing isn't a lack of effort or physical strength on your part, but rather your own instinct to try and forcefully control the golf club.
If you found today's episode valuable, please subscribe to our channel. Every subscription helps us continue producing high-quality educational content for golfers and coaches worldwide. If you have a question, topic idea, or golf challenge you would like us to research, test, and explain, please leave a comment, contact us on LinkedIn, or send us an email. Don't forget to explore the eCoach 360-degree Golf Intelligence platform and experience our 48-hour free trial. You can also join our 30-day golf biomechanics, kinematics, ground reaction forces, and club kinematic certification program to deepen your understanding of golf performance.